McKinsey says 42% of companies halted or abandoned an AI initiative in 2025, more than double the prior year. The reason isn't the model, it's the foundation underneath: undocumented processes, disconnected systems, and unmeasured variables. Larry Ellison said it plainly: the magic is in your data. Today, we get specific about why activity data, not opinion data, is the prerequisite to AI working at all, and what leaders can do this quarter to get that foundation right. Welcome to Some Goodness, where we engage seasoned business leaders and experts to share practical guidance and tips to help new and future C-level leaders maximize their impact. My guest today is Jack Siney, co-founder of Front Race and a serial founder. In our last conversation with Jack, we walked through the AI truths leaders are avoiding. Today, we go deeper on the truths that live closest to Front Race's thesis: the gap between what leaders think their teams are doing and what activity data actually shows, and why that gap is exactly where AI initiatives go to die. Well, hello, Jack. Welcome back.
Hi, Richard. Thanks for having me. Great to see you again.
I loved our first conversation about some of your AI truths. So we talked a little bit about data in that conversation, in that episode, but I want to double click and really get into the details, because data, this, as we alluded to and talked about in the first episode, is so important to get right.
Yep, totally agree.
One of the things that you had kind of shared with me offline is that a lot of times sales processes or just general workflows and processes in business are too rigid for AI automation. Let's talk about just what that means and kind of how you came to that conclusion.
Sure. AI is going to be a transformative, amazing tool. Today, it already is on the tech side, and I think in the business environment, it's a work in progress, right? For a variety of reasons, and from our perspective, most notable is that for AI to have the impact it can have, there's some foundational things companies really need to do so that they are doing analytics and making decisions off really core, good, accurate data. And it's challenging. It's historically, if you said you were going to create a consolidated, normalized database, that would be a multi-year, super challenging effort. And so AI has made that process notably easier. It's still complicated, but the ability to do it in much shorter order, make sure that it's accurate, and be able to do good analytics off it, we believe is the key. Again, I think Larry Ellison said a couple of weeks ago, all the LLMs are using the same open data set. The magic is in your data, as you kicked off the show with Richard. The magic is you have the answers. If you have any, a couple of years of legacy data, you've had some success, you've had some failures, the magic is in that data to uncover what works, what doesn't work. And we just haven't been able to do that historically very well. And I think AI will open that door to allow us to have an amazing set of analytics here over the next several years.
When we think about, the underlying data, I think about, not only just, the bits and bytes and where they live in their data silos, but also the workflows and the processes that are documented, and so we of course work with sales teams a lot. And so you think about that sales process. And a lot of times what's documented in your CRM system, for example, it's a very linear, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and here's what you do. But we all know that deals don't flow linearly and perfectly like that. They often bounce around, right? It's a very non-linear experience of sales motion. And so does that create, some challenges when people try to just kind of take AI tool, throw it on top of a linear process that's really in reality not linear?
Of course, like people I know in sales, type A, super motivated, all I'm going to conquer the world. And then we do some weirdo things that I think we've just bought into, of like, hey, we're going to measure a certain set of metrics. I held everybody's feet to the fire for those metrics. But in that world, because we want to be able to measure Bob compared to Mary or Mike, and are we really doing it? Are we working and work from home? And but the reality is what you said. Everybody on our team is different and has different strengths. That's number one. All of our prospects are different. Some can be in different verticals. There's certainly different size deployments, different budgets. And then we have a process that's in our sales manual or our client service manual that said, hey, this is how we do it, right? Because we want to have some baseline. And so all of those create a ton of frustration, particularly, we all know this, typically our best reps, whatever we think, if we would stand in front of the board or the CEO and say, here's our process, right? Here's our sales process. Dude, it's how we train people. I guarantee almost everyone confronts their best person is not following that. Their best person moves it all around, starts backwards, does it all. And then you're like, well, that's not what Mary's doing. And Mary's crushing it. I know, but Mary's one on one and you can't really, I can't keep it, you know? And so it's so odd that again, we have all these moving variables where we're asking people historically to ask them to follow a standardized thing. We measure them based upon a standardized thing. And, you and I have talked offline. The reality is it's all we really, in the sales side, on the commercial side, we just care about, are we selling? And so sometimes we lose sight of that. We're like, I want to measure Bob's activity and work hours and outreach and pipeline. And you're like, don't you just care if Bob's selling? Like, who cares how Bob gets there as long as we're doing it ethically and matches
Right.
our company policy and we're matching the brand. And, he's, as long as he's in some relative framework, do you care how he gets there? Like, we don't. But somehow, because we feel like as managers, we have to hold people accountable or measure, we've been measuring for 4 decades these metrics that have no direct correlation to do we get the goal and does it help our entire team get the goal. So
Yeah.
we're not doing that. We've been doing that for a long time. I don't understand why. And so hopefully AI will break this conundrum that we've had for 4 decades and give us some new innovative metrics, some tools that do have a direct correlation into success, which is, I think, what we're seeking. It's what the market's seeking and what the future business leaders want, instead of kind of some antiquated things we just decided we have to have a CRM and we have to have a dashboard. We have to measure number of calls and pipeline, don't we? Don't we have to do that, Rich? You're not managing pipeline?
Yeah.
You're fired.
Well, and I think the biggest danger is just replicating the past because it's what we've always done, right? I'm from Texas. You recently moved to Texas. So one of our sayings is, don't pave cow paths. Right. And so in the old days, the cows wandered and they got from point A to point B. And as they kind of wandered, they carved out, a path and that became the road. But that doesn't mean it's the most efficient way to get from point A to point B. We really need to recognize, well, what is the end game? Like you said, it's closed deals. Yeah. And then also recognize there's probably multiple paths, many paths to get there.
Amen.
And it could be different for different people based on their skill sets. And I think we had a technology limitation with CRM that we had to kind of put some steps in there and it had to be linear. But now with the advance of AI, we're helping to create agents and more of a guided selling tool for a rep that says, based on where you are, here are multiple paths you could go down. And it's kind of like choose your own adventure. And so you don't have to just do this next thing. You can do the thing that makes most sense for that situation, that client, right? That particular sales motion and your strengths, right? Because it might not always be do a demo next for everybody.
Right. That's the key, right? Maybe just because it's step 5. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, we talked about the prior show of the money spent and why, it hasn't been necessarily so, the ROI hasn't been great. And again, just obvious paradigms that for some reason in the sales world, we have a hard time chewing off, which is, hey, we have I believe this is what's happening for the last year. We have 20 steps. Hey, let's kind of automate that. Let's get rid of our SDRs. We're going to automate 20 steps. But the reality is the SDRs are actually doing 32 steps. Right. They're actually doing 32 steps. So they're doing some things that aren't documented and help build relationship and what have you. So we bring in an AI agent. We only train them on 20 of the steps because we don't even know the other 12 exist. And then we wonder at the end of our pilot, why did the 20-step thing fail? Because that's all we train the agent to do, right? We trained it to do 20 steps. Hey, we're going to automate the whole thing. And wonder why at the end of the day, it's failing. It's because the agent's not doing the other 12 steps that the humans were doing. We never trained it to do those steps. In fact, we didn't even know they were happening because that's what our best people were doing. And so the key is really assessing all of the data, aggregating all of the connection points, all of the interactions. By the way, good and bad, because good has a certain set of characteristics and bad. No one purposely screws up their deal. No one goes, today, I'm going to send this document that's going to screw up my deal. But there are characteristics of deals we lose, and be able to manage those, analyze those at a micro level is what AI is amazing at. And so that's what really we're at Front Race we're trying to deliver on is the magic's in the micro details. Everyone knows the big things. Everyone knows what your culture is and the pitch and the pricing and the demo and the FAQs. Everyone knows those. That is not what's differentiating your best reps from your average reps. It's 20 little things. And again, trying to put eyes on those now and share those with the rest of the team, we believe is the magic.
Yeah, it's those extra undocumented data or variables that are not in the system. Well, let me ask you this then, because it's always a balancing act, in terms of how much do you require a rep to get into CRM and document in their opportunity record, right? You don't want it to be, too, over engineered or an exercise in documentation for the sake of it. Um, does this require to get those extra, 5, 10, 15 elements into AI? Does it require reps to now have to document more? And is that going to be a burden, or what's your
This is going to bother people a lot. I
Yeah.
don't want I don't want the reps to put anything in. I've been a sales rep. I just have to be old now. So I do some of that, less of that front line, but God bless. Those people work hard, earn every dollar they get. It's amazing. So this is not a shot at the, but it's biased. As soon as you need this sales rep to provide the perspective, we're in trouble. So we talked about this before. If the pipeline, this is what we've done for years. We ask the sales rep to put the deal in. What's the expected close date? How much will it be? And what's the probability it'll close? You're like, they're so biased. What? Of course, their job relies upon them having a good pipeline. You think they're not? I mean, all of it is so counterintuitive. So as soon as you rely on the sales reps to do it, we're in trouble. So we know immediately the data is at risk. And so for front race, we don't take on clients that have outside sales reps that have to come back, that nothing's documented, nothing's recorded, and they have to type it in the CRM. To me, that data is highly flawed. So for us, we really want to put tools in place, very, very accessible today, that start to manage the process without the sales reps putting anything in. There's conversation recording tools, transcription tools. There's things that track your email, your text, your proposals, when it was sent, when pricing changes, who's involved. All of that is undisputable. And so the more you automate it, the better the data is this is what really happened. It's not someone's opinion. And I promise you, without question, if you have a system where you invest in a couple of systems that actually automates the interactions, what was a deal put in? When did it change? Why did it change? That data set over a year will be so amazing, way more than any pipeline you have with the best people updating it and changing it. And so, again, it's not about will. We're just all biased. When you meet with a client, if we're selling, we only hear the good stuff. Unless they hang up the phone and tell us to go kick rocks, we're like, oh, they said at the end, call me next week. You know what I mean? Although somebody who's watching the sales call, they'd be like, they're not buying. Right? But we're just prone, and we're like, maybe we'll convince them. And so to get back to your question, we want to put, there's a lot of tools out there to start to make it automated so the sales reps can focus on building relationship. What are the strategic things they should be doing versus trying to input into a CRM, which everyone hates anyway. It's awful. But the data they put in is normally incomplete. It's biased. It could be embellished in some cases. Yeah. So again, garbage in, garbage out.
And so that's where the difference and really the focus should be on the activity data, the interaction data versus opinion data. Like you said, reps have happy ears. They put their opinions in and what they think. But you want the facts, you want the interactions, you want the activity.
Right. Like one of the things in the activity, like in a micro level, just not to bore everyone to death, but it's not just what's done. Like we said earlier, not only your best people typically taking your 22 steps and inverting them and moving them around and doing step 22 first and step 1 last. And not only that, but some of the magic is in the time between each activity.
Okay.
Right. We've all had this. We've all been on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn at all, somebody sends you a friend request or a DM, a connection request. And then as soon as you say accept, 3 minutes later, they're like, oh, you want to buy something? Here's my son. And you're like, oh my God. We just met. You know what I mean? So some of the magic is the time in between the steps, right? Letting it breathe. It's not just do a call, send an email, send our one pager, then schedule the demo. Some of it's the time between it, like letting it breathe. What's the right time to wait? When do we send our materials? It's not just the activities. It's the time between the activities. When do we send them? All those things get lost. I don't know a system out there today that tracks time between each call. If you think about this, again, stupid example, but it happens. Sales reps do this. I called Richard at 8 a.m. Then I called him at 9:15. Then I called him at 10. Then I called him at noon because we did a demo last week and Richard said he loved it. Then I called him at 1. Then I called him at 3 because I got a meeting with my sales manager at 5 and I got to tell him what's the update on Richard. And now at the end of the day, if you were 50-50, now you're pissed because now you're like, this dude's a stalker, right?
Right.
And so what is the right time between events is a micro variable that dramatically impacts the outcome almost every situation. Never measured, never commented to. I've never seen a metric in any dashboard that says, oh, we have 72 steps. And in between each step, the average time, or between step 1 is 2 days, step 2 is 3 hours, step 4 is 4 weeks. Like, I've never seen a dashboard that has that data element. It's probably one of the most critical things, whether you're building relationships and people like you.
That's really insightful because, too soon is probably not a good thing and too long is not a good thing. And so you
Right.
get some correlative data to say, here's what works best, right? And then
Well,
you
what's
can
right.
start.
And for every company, it's different, right? It's
Right,
what we do
right.
is we take the
Different
company's
sales
data
motions and
and
what you're selling.
totally right. Here's
Yeah.
what works for you and your company. Here's what starts to work. And here's what happens when you lose, right? Because so many companies, when they lose, are like, let's not talk about it. We spent a lot of time and energy. Like, there's a lot of magic in the losses. Here's what happens when we lose. We do this. There's a company we dealt with this is a crazy stat. When they sent their 7th text, this company, their CRM tracked text. As soon as they sent a 7th text, they never won a deal. Because sales reps, instead of calling, interacting, they were texting somebody to death. The 7th text was a death knell. They had
Wow.
a 7th text. They never won a deal. Never won a deal. So you're like, stop doing that. Stop.
Right.
Like we think, oh, it's less invasive. I'm just going to text Richard and tell him what a great guy is. And you're like, nope, you get to text 7, your deal's done. And by the way, good learning. So then take that out of your have to track on your pipeline, opportunity cost, just write it off. When you get to 7 texts, that deal's done. And that was 3 years of data. So you're like, that's a fact.
That's really good. Really good.
Yeah.
Well, the other angle of leveraging AI comes with just trying to automate things and make things easier, faster, more scalable, et cetera. But
Yeah.
where does that break down, or, an over reliance on automation really, get us into trouble in your
goodness
perspective?
gracious. Well, that's what's happening right now. If folks don't want to go back and kind of do some foundational things of get your data in order and understand your process, you can throw today, as we say today, Claude Cowork is the hottest thing. Hey, it's going to connect your stuff and give you stuff. Well, go ahead and try that. So encourage you. It's relatively free, or $20 a month. Go put Claude in top of your data, okay, to do this today, and ask it a simple question. Who are my top 5 reps, or who has it'll answer it. As soon as you add a third variable, I promise you it'll be wrong. It can't join the data properly. Like, the LLMs are great, but if you said, hey, who is my top rep with the biggest pipeline, who has the least number of calls, or whatever, or the most number of calls, or doesn't, it will get it wrong. And what's frustrating,
Right.
it can't join the data properly, and it hallucinates and will be adamant that it's right. I don't know if you saw a couple weeks ago, the OpenAI, the guy said, oh, I ran a marathon. I ran a mile. What was my time? And OpenAI claimed he just said, I ran a mile. I'm back. He was only gone for 2 seconds. And the AI would be, oh, it's 7 minutes and 23 seconds. He's like, no, what are you saying? It was really aggressive. Then they asked Sam Altman. Sam Altman at OpenAI saw it. I said, oh, that was one of the newer versions. So then the kid went back to that thing and asked, are you one of the newer versions? He goes, no. And he goes, well, that's your CEO saying it is. He goes, no, we're fine. So he goes, okay, well, let me do it again. So the kid did the same thing. He goes, all right, I'm going to run a mile. Ready? Yes, go. All right, I'm back. Yeah, stop. What was the time? He's like 9 minutes and 10 seconds. He's like, no, what are you saying? And it gets, not only does it say it, it gets very aggressive. It's like,
Right.
definitely, you're
Right.
wrong.
Yeah.
Really
Who
aggressive.
are you
So,
to question me?
right. I just share all that. It's amazing, but it's the way the joins work and the way the LLMs work. It's very hard for it to piece together the data right. So that's a problem. It pieces the data wrong. It can't do it correctly, and it hallucinates. So that's the problem. How do you fix that? So we at Front Race, just jumping ahead a little bit, there's some things we do with the technology. We have this thing called a metric engine. The key to stop that is you have to put flags in the sand, hard data in the sand along the path, so it constantly stays on path, right? And so that's one of the pieces of technology that we developed. So you're driving down a road, you don't want to get off the wrong exit. You got to put data elements. We call it a metric engine. We measure constantly non-traditional variables so that the LLM can attach the data correctly and give you an accurate result. Easily said than done. And so that's some of the things we spent the last couple of years developing, both a metric engine and a time machine that will track that over time. Those are 2 very hard things to do that the LLMs today do not do. And so that's what we really bring to bear for companies and trying to give them, garbage in, garbage out. Back to your question of, if you don't have the right set of hard data elements along the road, you're going to get to a bad place. You're going to swear it's right. And again, you're either going to miss goal or you're going to get fired, and it's going to suck.
Really? No, that's a really smart way to solve that problem. Because one of the things that we're kind of in the middle of is, as we help sales and marketing teams, is understanding where they can, generally count on AI and where they have to be cautious, right? And
Yeah,
so, if you're looking for brainstorming and ideation for creative purposes or
amazing.
whatever, right? You can just kind of run with what it gives you. But if you're trying to quote some industry stat for a
Mm,
prospect in outreach, you need to make sure that's right, right? And that
cool.
requires sourcing it and fact checking it.
Amen.
Because to your point, it'll hallucinate and it'll say, okay, here's the stat. And I caught it doing that to me, just a week ago. I said, "Where'd you get that stat?" And it's like, "Well, you're right. I should have sourced that." And then it came back and it was like, "Well, I don't have a hard source. This was,
Oh,
directional average based on many
yep.
sources." And I was like, "Well, what were those sources?" And it came
Yeah,
back,
listen,
it gave me a
basic
bunch of old
analytics.
stuff, and I'm like, "I told you specifically only sources in the last 3 years." And
Oh,
it's like, "You're right," and it fell on its sword. And I'm just like, "What? What is happening?"
no. The basic analytics, there's this whole thing about the AI upheaval and what's going to happen here in the next couple of years. To me, the biggest challenge are the right out of college, those jobs, to me, that's the real struggle. The basic analytics, AI is amazing at, like super basic, like I always call it like spell check on steroids, like creating content, emails, marketing stuff, basic analytics, amazing. As soon as you start to want to do, start to join things in different systems or do some really strategic things you need to do as a leading a business, and how does this follow one step after another? Super, super challenging. This technology is still amazing, but you have to control it and feed it and give it parameters.
Yes.
Everything you see on social media, fire all your people and just use AI. Well, good luck. I'll just tell you now, at this 2 years, I don't know anybody that's doing that. There are anecdotal stories across social media. Great. And by the way, I'm not saying we won't get there. I'm just sitting here. Q2 of 2026 does not exist in any mass scale at all. And so folks get all spun up about, I got to do AI tomorrow. I got to do AI tomorrow. You're like, okay, well, if you don't have your data right and understand your process, all you're going to get is a bunch of gibberish. And so
Yeah.
it's a big waste of time.
Well,
I say that humbly. You know what I mean?
no,
I don't,
no, yeah,
yeah,
I agree. Well, and I just appreciate the challenge for the younger generation. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy, but 20 years of B2B go to market experience, I notice when things aren't right, and they just
yeah,
seem off when I get an answer from an agent, right? And I'm just like, wait a minute, because of my experience, right, in the field and in the trenches, I can
yeah,
push back, but. A fresh grad doesn't have that experience to say, this seems off, let me
yeah.
double check. Right. And so then they just kind of run with hallucination.
It's good. Listen, again, I don't mean to be rain on the AI parade. We're an AI company. I love it. We just have to know what it does well and what it doesn't. And there is just a lot of, in my mind, puffery propaganda of like, you're just going to plug AI in, it's going to work, and it'll get rid of your sales team, and you're going to cut because you see these companies, a real world challenge, a real world thing that I do think's happening, that is self perpetuating, which is a problem. In the history of this country, in the economy, we've never had CEOs. If you were a public company, did a mass riff, the market always said, you're a bad manager. The executive team doesn't know what they're doing. They punish your stock.
Yes.
That's the history of all the history of the market. That's what has happened. Today, we are now an upside down world, just like the .com. Whereas if you do a riff, so you just fired 20% of your staff, the market says, you're the greatest company in the world, and your valuation is going up. So
Yeah.
if you're a CEO of a public company, that is a real dynamic. I don't know how that plays out. That is a real thing that public CEOs are definitely responding to. Every board's having a meeting. But from a real world, implementing, making it work, make your company operate better, there's a lot of foundational things companies have to do to make AI really work. And it will generate great efficiencies. But out of the gate, to just slap whatever, an LLM on top of your data and think you're going to get rid of your team, or you're going to be so efficient, you're going to close deals, dead on arrival. Just not at no scale across this country is that happening.
Yeah. Agreed. Let's wrap up with getting real practical. So, in light of all of this discussion we had about data and AI and bringing everything together, what are 3 things leaders can do this
Oh,
quarter to start, closing that gap or moving in the right direction?
great question. Don't go buy an AI solution and spend your money on it. So you do the following things, please, for the love of God, I say lovingly. Look, one is work on a process, a front race or somebody else, both consolidate and standardize your data, get all your data in one spot. That's not as challenging as it has been in years past. Get all of your data in one spot, and you have to standardize it so you have good data you're working off of. The magic is already in your company. Do not miss that step. Please, please, please. The magic, it's not out in the open data set that the models are using. It's in your company data. It's worth the time and energy. If you do nothing else this year, you can go into January 2027 and you have all your data online and you're able to analyze it, put LLMs on top of it. A huge victory, amazing. The most valuable thing you'll ever do. Front Race can help you with that. Secondly, understand the process flow. Really understand it. Ask your leaders, automate what is actually happening. How do we actually retain a customer? What are all the steps we do? How do we sell a customer? When we lose, what does that look like? Again, if you can go into next year understanding what are your real sales process look like, what your real client retention, that's a huge victory. The technology 6 months from now will be way more advanced. So data, please understand your process. The last thing I would just say, this is very self-serving, I'm sure, for Front Race. Having a tool that allows you to analyze whatever AI things you want to plug into your company, right? Because it's going to change. Again, whatever you buy today is going to look so antiquated 24 months from now. And so you need a tool that's able to tell you, hey, is this new thing, this agent that is it working? And to what degree? And so having a foundational layer, that's at the end of the day, what Front Race is a layer that sits on top. What you have that tells you, here's our benchmarks today. And then, hey, let's try to automate marketing. Hey, is that working? This part's working, this part's not. Let's try to maybe automate some of our SDR functions. Is this working? A tool that lets you analyze what you're doing. Because again, what you want is flexibility as the tools continue to emerge, which they will. You want to be able to take one out, plug one in, take one out, plug one in. And so you need a way to measure, is it working or not? And so those are the three biggest things. Get your data aligned, standardize it, understand your process, and get a tool that allows you to measure because you're going to change systems quite a bit over the next 5 years. And you have to know, is the impact good? Is the impact bad? You don't want that to be your job on the line. That's what people are doing. They're jumping off a cliff and be like, let's buy, blah, blah, blah. It sucks. Oh, it didn't work. All right, well, Bob's gone and his AI tool's gone. Let's hire somebody else. And so don't be in that boat. If you do those three foundational things and you have those done going into next year, you are going to crush emerging technology and what's happening.
Love it. So practical. Thank you for that. And as we wrap up our episode today, let's close with some extra goodness outside of data. What comes to mind?
Oh my God. Yeah, I was on the work side. As an entrepreneur, I'll just share the following story. Like as an entrepreneur, you throw some things against the wall or over the wall and you hope they stick. You have a feeling, you have an opinion. Over the last couple of months, couple of weeks, we've had a series of folks in the market. Larry Ellison said some stuff about analyzing company data. We had some folks talk about AI is really about getting your foundational elements in place. And so to me, those are some of the best days I've had so far in the AI world. You put some theories out into the ether, you see it working, but it is great when some market leaders say things that are highly promoted that validate this opinion that you've had. You've kind of been yelling against the wind for a while. You feel like, are we the only people saying this? And so when you have some articles and some well-known people say things that are very validating to how we at Front Race view the world, it's been very, very fulfilling. And although we didn't even sell anything that day per se, just hearing that, oh yeah, that is true. Other people that are in this market feel like it's true. Super helpful. So that's probably my biggest goodness in my entrepreneurial journey over the last couple of months. So,
oh, that's so good. So rewarding. Yeah. That validation and sometimes unexpected validation from, really compelling sources and others is so meaningful. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for your time today and being on the show once again.
Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it so much. God bless. Continued success, everybody.
Right. Thank you.
Some Goodness is a creation of Revenue Innovations. Visit us at revenueinnovations.com and subscribe to our newsletter.